The glossy black grand piano sat untouched, in the corner of the Evergreen Hotel's opulent ballroom, its polished surface reflecting the crystal chandeliers overhead. The annual charity gala hosted by Hartwell Industries was in full swing, with waiters in pristine uniforms weaving through clusters of Boston's elite. Champagne flowed freely, diamonds sparkled, and beneath the pleasant hum of conversation lay the unmistakable current of power and wealth. Amelia Bennett stood by the service entrance, her fingers nervously smoothing down her borrowed black dress. At 32, she was attractive in an understated way, with warm brown eyes and chestnut hair pulled back in a simple updo. Tonight was her first event as part of the catering staff, a second job she'd taken to supplement her income as a music teacher at a public elementary school. The extra money would help with her 6-year-old daughter Penny's upcoming medical treatments. "Hey, new girl," called Travis, one of the senior servers, motioning her over with a jerk of his chin. "How's it going out there?" "Fine," Amelia replied, refilling her tray with champagne flutes. "Just trying not to drop anything." Travis smirked, his eyes flicking toward the ballroom. "See that piano? Word is the entertainment cancelled last minute. Rumor has it the great Gabriel Hartwell himself is in a mood about it." Amelia followed his gaze to a tall, imposing figure standing near the center of the room. Gabriel Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Industries and one of the wealthiest men in America, was speaking with several guests, but his expression remained distant, almost cold. At 40, he had the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command, with salt and pepper hair at his temples and piercing blue eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "What does that have to do with me?" Amelia asked, turning back to her work. Travis leaned closer, his breath smelling of mint and mischief. "I overheard the event coordinator panicking. Apparently Hartwell donated this piano himself, and he's big on showcasing local talent. Some hotshot pianist from Juilliard was supposed to play tonight." "That's unfortunate," Amelia said, preparing to return to the floor. "Wait." Travis grabbed her arm. "One of the other guys mentioned you teach music or something. Can you play?" Amelia hesitated. "I studied piano performance in college, but that was years ago. I haven't played professionally since—" "Perfect," Travis interrupted, his eyes gleaming. "I dare you to go play something. Just imagine the looks on these rich folks' faces when a server sits down at their fancy piano." "Absolutely not." Amelia pulled her arm free. "I need this job, Travis. Come on. What's the worst that could happen? They fire you. There are plenty of catering gigs in Boston." He nodded toward the piano again. "Besides, I bet you can't do it. These people can spot a fake from a mile away." Something shifted in Amelia's expression. Pride, perhaps, or defiance. "I'm not a fake." "Prove it," Travis challenged. Amelia took a deep breath. Thoughts of Penny filled her mind, her brave little girl facing another surgery next month, always smiling despite the pain. Sometimes life required risks. "Hold my tray," she said quietly. Travis's eyes widened. "Wait, you're actually going to do it? I was just messing with you." But Amelia was already walking away, moving purposefully through the crowd. Her heart hammered in her chest as she approached the piano. A few curious glances turned her way as she set her empty serving tray on a nearby table and smoothed her hands down her dress once more. The event coordinator, a harried woman with a clipboard, spotted her and frowned. "Excuse me, you can't—" "I heard you lost your pianist," Amelia said softly. "I can help." The woman looked skeptical. "You're with the catering staff." "Yes, but I'm also a pianist." Amelia held the woman's gaze steadily. "What do you have to lose?" After a moment's hesitation, the coordinator nodded curtly. "Fine, one piece. If it's not working, I'll signal you to stop." Amelia approached the piano, aware of the growing attention. A ripple of whispers followed her as she sat on the bench and adjusted its height. She could feel curious stares, hear suppressed laughter. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Travis and several other servers watching, with expressions ranging from amusement to horror. She took a steadying breath and placed her hands on the keys. The cool ivory beneath her fingers felt like coming home after a long journey. For a moment she closed her eyes, remembering late nights practicing in college, dreams of concert halls and the life she'd once imagined. Then she thought of Penny's small, trusting face, and everything crystallized into perfect clarity. Amelia began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Operant 9, No. 2. The familiar melody flowed from her fingers, filling the vast space with its haunting beauty. The opening notes were tentative at first, but as she continued, muscle memory took over. Her body remembered what her mind had forgotten: the subtle weight transfers, the precise timing, the delicate touch required to make the piece sing rather than merely sound. The room gradually quieted. Conversations ceased mid-sentence. Champagne flutes paused halfway to lips. Even the servers stood transfixed, their duties momentarily forgotten. The music swelled and receded like ocean tides, telling a story of longing and quiet strength. When Amelia looked up briefly, her eyes inadvertently met Gabriel Hartwell's across the room. He had turned fully toward the piano, his expression unreadable, but his complete attention fixed on her. She quickly looked away, focusing again on the music, but the brief connection left her oddly shaken. As she played the final notes, allowing them to fade gently into silence, Amelia became aware of the complete stillness that had fallen over the ballroom. For a heartbeat, no one moved or spoke. Then applause erupted, starting slowly and building into enthusiastic approval. Flushed and slightly disoriented, Amelia stood and gave a small, awkward bow. The event coordinator was hurrying toward her, no longer looking harried but excited. "That was exquisite," the woman said. "Would you consider playing a few more pieces? We'd compensate you, of course." Before Amelia could respond, she noticed Gabriel Hartwell making his way through the crowd toward them. His face remained composed, but there was something different about his eyes, an intensity that hadn't been there before. "Who are you?" he asked without preamble when he reached them. "Amelia Bennett," she replied, suddenly conscious of her borrowed dress and her status as a server. "Where did you study?" "New England Conservatory, but I didn't finish. I had to leave in my final year." Gabriel's gaze traveled from her face to her hands and back again. "Why?" The question was direct, almost intrusive, but Amelia found herself answering honestly. Life happened, priorities changed. He nodded once, as though confirming something to himself. "Play another," he said, and though his tone was gentle, it was clearly not a request. As Amelia sat back down at the piano, she couldn't help feeling that something significant had just occurred, though she couldn't have named what it was. All she knew was that as her fingers found the opening chords of Debussy's Clair de Lune, her world was somehow tilting on its axis, realigning itself into a new configuration. Behind her, Gabriel Hartwell stood motionless, watching her hands dance across the keys, with an expression that none of his associates had ever seen before. The week following the gala passed in a blur for Amelia. Her brief performance had earned her more than just applause. The event coordinator had pressed 5 crisp $100 bills into her hand before she left, calling it a performance fee. The money went straight into Penny's medical fund, a small buffer against the mountain of bills that kept Amelia awake at night. "Mommy, can we get ice cream?" Penny asked, as they walked home from school on Friday afternoon. Despite the chronic pain condition that often left her tired, Penny's spirit remained buoyant, her smile lighting up her delicate features framed by unruly blonde curls. "You know what? I think we can today," Amelia replied, squeezing her daughter's small hand. They detoured to their favorite shop, where Penny deliberated seriously over flavors before settling on rainbow sherbet. As they sat at a small table by the window, Amelia watched her daughter's joy over this simple pleasure and felt the familiar mixture of love and worry that had become her constant companion since Penny's diagnosis 2 years ago. "Miss Peterson said I played really well in music class today," Penny announced, rainbow sherbet staining her lips. "She said I might have talent like you." Amelia smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Maybe we can practice together this weekend." "Can we play that pretty song, the Moon one? Clair de Lune? Sure, we can try the simplified version I taught you." Amelia's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She normally ignored unknown calls, but something compelled her to answer. "Miss Bennett, this is Richard Klein, assistant to Gabriel Hartwell." Amelia nearly dropped her spoon. "Yes, Mr. Hartwell would like to meet with you to discuss a potential opportunity. Would you be available tomorrow afternoon?" Stunned, Amelia arranged to meet at Hartwell Industries' downtown headquarters the following day. After hanging up, she stared at her phone in disbelief. "Who was that, Mommy? You look funny," Penny observed. "Just someone offering a job," Amelia replied carefully. "A better job than your night job? The one that makes you tired?" Amelia's heart squeezed. At 6, Penny was already too perceptive about their circumstances. "Maybe. We'll see." That night, after tucking Penny into bed, Amelia called her neighbor, Margaret Walsh, a retired nurse who often helped with childcare. "Of course I can watch Penny tomorrow," Margaret assured her. "This sounds important." Probably nothing, Amelia said, trying to manage her own expectations. But thank you. Saturday arrived with Amelia standing before her closet, facing the dispiriting reality that she owned nothing appropriate for a meeting with one of the country's wealthiest businessmen. She finally settled on her one interview outfit, a navy blue skirt and matching blazer that had seen better days. The Hartwell Industries building dominated the Boston skyline, a gleaming tower of steel and glass. In the marble-floored lobby, Amelia gave her name to a receptionist who directed her to an express elevator. Her stomach lurched as it shot upward to the 40th floor. Richard Klein met her as the doors opened, a precise man with wire-rimmed glasses and a polite smile. "Ms. Bennett." "Thank you for coming on short notice. Mr. Hartwell is expecting you." He led her through an elegant office space to a set of mahogany doors, knocked once, and ushered her inside. Gabriel Hartwell's office was unexpectedly understated, spacious but not ostentatious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Boston Harbor. He rose from behind his desk as she entered, looking even more imposing in daylight than he had in the ballroom's dim lighting. "Miss Bennett, please, sit." He gestured to a chair facing his desk. "Would you like coffee, tea?" "No, thank you," Amelia replied, perching on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Gabriel studied her for a moment. "Your performance the other night was remarkable. I've heard professionals with less skill and certainly less feeling." "Thank you," Amelia said, unsure where this was heading. "I did some research," he continued, surprising her. "You were on track for a promising career. Full scholarship at the conservatory, glowing reviews from student recitals. Then you disappeared from the music scene entirely." Amelia stiffened. "As I said, priorities changed." "Your daughter," Gabriel stated, rather than asked. At her startled look, he added, "I'm thorough when something interests me, Miss Bennett." "My daughter is not up for discussion," Amelia said firmly, despite her nervousness. "If that's why I'm here—" "It's not," Gabriel interrupted, his expression softening marginally. "I apologize if I overstepped. I wanted to understand why someone with your talent is working as a caterer." Amelia relaxed slightly. "Teaching music at an underfunded public school doesn't pay all the bills." Gabriel nodded, accepting this without judgment. "I have a proposition for you. My mother, Caroline Hartwell, is turning 70 next month. She was a dedicated patron of the arts before her health began declining. These days she rarely leaves her estate in Newport." He paused, moving to look out at the harbor. "She taught me to play piano as a child. It's one of the few good memories I have of my childhood. The piano you played at the gala was hers. I donated it to the hotel in her name years ago." This personal revelation seemed to cost him something. Amelia remained silent, sensing there was more to this story. "Music was everything to her once," Gabriel continued. "Now she shows little interest in anything. Her doctors say it's not just physical decline, but a lack of will." He turned back to Amelia. "I'd like to hire you to play for her. Private performances at her estate, twice weekly to start." Amelia blinked in surprise. "I'm not a professional pianist anymore." "You could have fooled everyone at that gala." A hint of a smile appeared briefly on his face. "Including me." "What exactly would this involve?" she asked cautiously. "You would drive to Newport, about an hour from Boston, play for my mother for approximately 2 hours. The repertoire would be your choice, though she favors the romantics, Chopin, Liszt, Schumann. And the compensation?" $2,000 per session, Amelia's breath caught. "That's excessive." "It's not charity, if that concerns you. It's the going rate for a private performance by a skilled pianist." His eyes held hers steadily, plus expenses for travel. The amount was staggering, enough to cover Penny's medical bills and then some. But suspicion nagged at her. "Why me? There are professional pianists you could hire." Gabriel considered her question. "The way you played that night, it wasn't just technically proficient. There was emotion, vulnerability. My mother needs that connection more than perfect technique." Something in his voice made Amelia wonder if perhaps he needed it too. "I have a daughter," she said. "Her schedule, her needs come first. We can work around your availability. Richard will handle the logistics." Gabriel came to stand before his desk. "Will you at least consider it?" Amelia thought of Penny's next surgery, the mounting bills, the second job that left her exhausted. "When would you want me to start?" "Next week, if possible." He seemed pleased by her implied acceptance. There's one more thing. He pressed a button on his desk. Richard, send them in. The office door opened and a middle-aged couple entered, looking nervous. Miss Bennett, this is Walter and June Spencer. They were also at the gala. June Spencer stepped forward, her eyes bright. Your playing was beautiful. Walter and I... Well, our daughter was supposed to get married next month, but her fiancé... She faltered. Walter put his arm around his wife. Our daughter's engagement ended badly. She's devastated. The wedding was to include a special piano piece during the ceremony, her grandmother's favorite. We were hoping you might consider playing at the ceremony instead of the performer who cancelled on us. Amelia looked from the hopeful couple to Gabriel, confused about his involvement. The Spencers are old friends, Gabriel explained. When they mentioned their dilemma, I thought of you. They'll compensate you separately, of course. June reached for Amelia's hand. We know it's last minute, but it would mean everything to our Kelly. Amelia felt overwhelmed. Yesterday she had been a struggling single mother, and today she was being offered opportunities that could change everything. Part of her wondered if this was too good to be true. I'd be happy to help, she found herself saying. Just let me know the details. After the Spencers left, Gabriel walked Amelia to the elevator. Richard will be in touch with the specifics. I'll see you at my mother's next week. As the elevator doors began to close, Amelia caught a final glimpse of Gabriel Hartwell. For just a moment, his carefully controlled expression had slipped, revealing something that looked almost like hope. The Georgian-style mansion that belonged to Caroline Hartwell stood regally on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. As Amelia drove through the iron gates and up the winding driveway, she felt increasingly out of place. Her used Honda Civic looked absurdly modest against the backdrop of manicured gardens and classical statuary. A housekeeping staff member greeted her at the front door, leading her through a marble-floored foyer adorned with priceless artwork. Mrs. Hartwell is in the music room, the woman explained. Mr. Gabriel arrived earlier. He doesn't usually attend these sessions, but he wanted to be here for the first one. Amelia's stomach tightened. No one had mentioned Gabriel would be present. She'd spent the past week practicing feverishly, determined to justify the extravagant fee. Now the pressure doubled. The music room was a light-filled space with tall windows facing the ocean. A magnificent Steinway concert grand piano stood at its center. Gabriel turned as she entered, his expression unreadable as always. Beside him in a wheelchair sat an elegant older woman with silver hair swept into a chignon. Despite her obvious frailty, Caroline Hartwell's posture remained impeccable, her aristocratic features clearly the source of her son's striking looks. Mother, this is Amelia Bennett, Gabriel said. Caroline regarded Amelia with cool blue eyes. You're younger than I expected. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Hartwell, Amelia replied, extending her hand. Caroline barely touched it before withdrawing. Gabriel tells me you're quite talented. We shall see. Her tone suggested deep skepticism. Amelia glanced at Gabriel, who gave a slight nod of encouragement. Taking a deep breath, she moved to the piano, adjusted the bench, and began her prepared program with Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The Steinway's action was perfect, its tone rich and resonant. As she played, Amelia lost herself in the music, momentarily forgetting her audience. When she finished the piece and looked up, Caroline's expression remained unchanged, but Gabriel was watching her with that same intensity she'd noticed at the gala. Continue, Caroline instructed. Amelia played for nearly 2 hours, moving through her carefully selected repertoire. Throughout, Caroline showed no reaction, sitting motionless, except for an occasional sip of tea brought by a staff member. When Amelia finished her final piece, Liszt's Consolation No. 3, silence filled the room. That will be all for today, Caroline finally said. Without another word, she pressed a button on her wheelchair and turned away, exiting through a side door. Deflated, Amelia began gathering her sheet music. I don't think she enjoyed it. You're wrong, Gabriel said, approaching the piano. I haven't seen her sit through a full recital in years. Usually she dismisses performers within 15 minutes. Really? My mother isn't one for effusive praise. The fact that she stayed is significant. He paused. Will you continue? Amelia thought of the check that would be waiting for her, money that would cover 3 months of Penny's medications. Yes, if she'll have me. She will. Something like a smile ghosted across Gabriel's face. Until next week, Miss Bennett. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Twice weekly, Amelia drove to Newport, played for Caroline and occasionally exchanged brief pleasantries with Gabriel when their paths crossed. Caroline remained aloof, though Amelia began noticing subtle changes, a tapping finger, a slight nod during particular passages. Meanwhile, Amelia prepared for the Spencer wedding, meeting with the heartbroken bride, Kelly, who slowly began showing signs of healing as they worked together on music selections. Life took on a new rhythm, slightly less frantic than before. She even managed to reduce her hours at the catering company. On her 5th visit to Newport, Amelia arrived to find Caroline alone. "Gabriel is in Tokyo on business," Caroline explained, her tone marginally warmer than in previous sessions. "He sends his regrets." Amelia was surprised by her own disappointment. That day, something shifted. Halfway through Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, Amelia noticed Caroline close her eyes, her stern features softening. When the piece ended, the older woman spoke. "You play with genuine emotion. It's rare these days. Too many technicians, not enough artists." She gestured to a leather portfolio on a side table. "Bring that to me." Inside were yellowed programs from concerts dating back decades. "I was a pianist too," Caroline said, showing Amelia photographs of a younger version of herself at various prestigious venues. "Not professionally. My father would never have allowed it. But I had some talent. Gabriel mentioned you taught him." A shadow crossed Caroline's face. "Until my husband decided it was too feminine a pursuit for his son and heir." Her voice hardened. William Hartwell had very specific ideas about masculinity. Amelia listened as Caroline gradually revealed pieces of family history. Her marriage to the domineering William, his rigid expectations for their only son, the slow suffocation of her own musical aspirations. "Why didn't you return to music after he passed?" Amelia asked gently. "By then it was too late. My hands—" Caroline held them up, revealing the twisted joints of rheumatoid arthritis. "And perhaps my spirit as well." From that day forward, their sessions included conversation. Caroline began requesting specific pieces, even suggesting fingering techniques for difficult passages. She asked about Amelia's background, nodding with understanding, when Amelia explained how Penny's medical needs had derailed her musical career. "You chose motherhood over art," Caroline observed. "I sometimes wonder if I should have made the same choice. Gabriel and I might have been closer." The day of the Spencer wedding arrived, coinciding with Amelia's 8th visit to Newport. The ceremony was scheduled for early evening, giving her time for her regular session with Caroline first. When she arrived, Gabriel was unexpectedly present, having returned from his business trip. "I thought I'd stay for today's performance," he said, looking more relaxed than Amelia had ever seen him. As she played Debussy's Reverie, Amelia noticed Gabriel watching not her, but his mother, a complex emotion in his eyes. When Caroline smiled during a particularly beautiful passage, he looked away quickly, but not before Amelia caught the moisture in his eyes. After the session, as Amelia prepared to leave for the wedding, Gabriel walked her to her car. "My mother seems different," he said. "More engaged, more present. Whatever you're doing, it's working." "We just talk," Amelia replied. "About music, about life. She's been sharing stories about your childhood." Gabriel tensed visibly. "What kinds of stories?" "Good ones, mostly. How you showed promise at the piano." He relaxed slightly. "Until my father put an end to it. He had other plans for the Hartwell heir." "It's not too late, you know," Amelia said impulsively, "to play again." Something vulnerable flashed across his face before his composure returned. "Some opportunities once lost don't come back." He glanced at his watch. "You should go. You don't want to be late for the wedding." The Spencer wedding was beautiful, the bride radiant despite her recent heartbreak. When Amelia played the grandmother's favorite piece, Schubert's Ave Maria, during the ceremony, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. Afterward, many guests approached her with compliments and requests for her contact information. Among them was Travis, her former co-worker from the catering company. "Fancy seeing you here," he said, his tone less friendly than his words. "You've come up in the world since the gala, playing for the Spencers, driving out to Newport twice a week to play for old Lady Hartwell." Amelia stiffened. "How do you know about that? Boston's a small town in some ways. People talk." Travis leaned closer. "Especially when the mysterious pianist catching everyone's attention turns out to be a nobody server who suddenly has the ear of Gabriel Hartwell." "I should get back to the reception," Amelia said, uncomfortable with his intensity. Travis grabbed her arm. "Come on, Amelia, we both know what's really going on. Hartwell's not paying you those big fees just for playing piano. What's your angle?" "Let go of me," she hissed, pulling away. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I? Word is Hartwell never takes an interest in anyone without a reason. What makes you so special? Unless—" his eyes narrowed maliciously. "Maybe I should make a few calls to the press. Billionaire's secret affair with single mom. That makes for a juicy headline." "There is no affair," Amelia insisted, her face burning. "It's a professional arrangement." "Then you won't mind if I share what I know," Travis countered, "including details about your sick kid. People love a sob story." "Leave my daughter out of this," Amelia warned, real anger flaring. "Everything all right here?" a deep voice interrupted. Gabriel Hartwell stood behind them, impeccably dressed in a tuxedo, his expression glacial as he regarded Travis. Travis paled. "Mr. Hartwell, I was just catching up with an old colleague." "Were you?" Gabriel's tone could have frozen fire. It looked like harassment from where I was standing. "No, sir, just a friendly chat. I'll be going now." Travis retreated hastily. Amelia stared at Gabriel in shock. "What are you doing here?" "The Spencers invited me. I came late." He turned to her, concern replacing his cold anger. "Are you all right?" "Who was that?" "Nobody important," Amelia said, still shaken. "Just someone I used to work with." Gabriel studied her face. "He upset you?" "It's nothing, really." Amelia forced a smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to come," he admitted. "But I wanted to hear you play in a different setting." Before Amelia could respond, Kelly Spencer approached, radiant in her wedding gown. "Amelia, everyone loved your performance." She noticed Gabriel and beamed wider. "Mr. Hartwell, Mom said you might come. Thank you for connecting us with Amelia. She's been such a blessing during this difficult time." After Kelly left, an awkward silence fell between them. "I should check on the next part of the program," Amelia finally said. Gabriel nodded. "Of course. But Amelia—" He hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Heart racing inexplicably, Amelia agreed before hurrying away, confused by her reaction to his simple request. Later that evening, as she packed up her music, Amelia found an envelope that someone had placed among her things. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 17 years ago, a small article about a car accident that had claimed the lives of a young couple, leaving their teenage son as the sole survivor. The son's name was Gabriel Hartwell. Scrawled across the clipping in red ink were the words, "Ask him what really happened that night. Ask him what he did." The restaurant Gabriel had chosen for their dinner was a small, elegant establishment tucked away on a quiet Boston street. No flashy sign announced its presence, just a discreet brass plaque beside a heavy wooden door. Inside, the lighting was soft, the atmosphere intimate, with only a dozen tables spaced widely apart. The maître d' led Amelia to a private alcove, where Gabriel was already waiting. He rose as she approached, his customary reserve softened by what almost looked like nervousness. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out her chair. Amelia had spent hours debating whether to bring the newspaper clipping. It now sat in her purse, burning a hole in her conscience. The accusatory red words kept flashing in her mind. Ask him what he did. "Is everything all right?" Gabriel asked, noticing her distraction. Amelia forced a smile. "Just tired after yesterday. The wedding was lovely, but emotional." They ordered, making careful small talk about the Spencers, about Caroline's progress, about the changing autumn weather. Gabriel seemed different here, more approachable, less the untouchable billionaire. "You mentioned wanting to discuss something," Amelia finally prompted after their first course arrived. Gabriel set down his fork. "Yes, it's about my mother." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Her doctors are seeing significant improvement. They're calling it remarkable, especially the reduction in her pain levels and depression symptoms." "That's wonderful," Amelia said sincerely. "They attribute it to your visits." His eyes held hers across the table. "Not just the music, but the connection you've established with her. No one has reached her like that in years." Amelia flushed slightly under his intense gaze. "She's an extraordinary woman." "Yes, she is." Gabriel's expression softened, "which makes what I'm about to propose more difficult." He took a deep breath. "I'd like to make our arrangement more permanent, a formal position, my mother's full-time music companion and therapist." Amelia blinked in surprise. "I'm not a trained music therapist. What you're doing is working better than any therapy she's tried." The position would include a substantial salary, benefits, and accommodations for both you and your daughter at the Newport estate. His eyes remained steady. Penny would have access to the best medical care. There's an excellent private school nearby. The offer was breathtaking in its generosity and utterly life-changing. Everything Amelia had worried about for years could be solved in one decision. "This is overwhelming," she said honestly. "Take time to consider it," Gabriel replied. "There's no rush." As their main courses arrived, Amelia felt the weight of the newspaper clipping growing heavier. If she accepted his offer, she would be binding her and Penny's lives to the Hartwells. Didn't she owe it to her daughter to know the truth about the man making such an extraordinary proposition? "Gabriel," she began hesitantly, "there's something I need to ask you." His expression turned guarded. "What is it?" Steeling herself, Amelia reached into her purse and withdrew the clipping, placing it carefully on the table between them. "Someone left this for me at the wedding." Gabriel went completely still, his face draining of color as he stared at the faded newsprint. The silence stretched so long that Amelia began to regret her decision. "Who gave you this?" he finally asked, his voice barely audible. "I don't know. It was among my sheet music when I was packing up." Amelia watched him carefully. "The note suggests there's more to the story than what was reported." Gabriel's hand trembled slightly as he picked up the clipping. "There always is," he said quietly. After a long moment, he looked up, his eyes filled with a pain so raw that Amelia nearly flinched. "Do you want to know what really happened that night, Amelia? Is that why you came tonight?" "No," she answered truthfully. "I came because you asked me to. But now, yes, I think I need to know." Gabriel signaled the waiter. "Bring the car around. We need somewhere more private for this conversation." 30 minutes later, they were walking along the Charles River, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. The night had turned cold, and Gabriel had insisted she take his suit jacket. It hung large on her frame, carrying the faint scent of his cologne. "I was 17, he began without preamble. "My father was difficult, controlling. Success was the only acceptable outcome in the Hartwell household. Failure was not tolerated." He stared out at the water. "That night, I just learned I'd been accepted to Yale, early admission, my father's alma mater, the path he'd chosen for me." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "But I'd also received an offer from Juilliard." Amelia's breath caught. "You wanted to study music, piano. I'd been practicing in secret for years after my father banned it. My teacher thought I had real potential." A bitter smile crossed his face. "I was naive enough to think my father would be proud, that my acceptance to a prestigious conservatory would change his mind." "It didn't," Amelia guessed softly. "He tore up the acceptance letter in front of me, called me—" Gabriel stopped, composing himself. "We argued, violently. I told him I was going to Juilliard with or without his blessing. He told me if I did, I would no longer be his son." They walked in silence for several steps. I stormed out. My mother followed me, begging me to reconsider, not to throw away my future over a hobby. His voice broke slightly. "My father came after us. He was driving too fast, too angry. On a curve by the coast." Amelia's hand found his arm. "The accident?" Gabriel nodded. "The car went over the guardrail. I managed to get out, to pull my mother free, but my father—" He swallowed hard. "The car caught fire. I couldn't reach him." "You were just a child," Amelia whispered, horrified. "The investigation ruled it an accident, but there were whispers. The Hartwell heir arguing with his father just before the crash. Some suggested I'd distracted him deliberately, or worse." His eyes met hers, haunted. "The note implies I did something criminal. I didn't. But I've never stopped feeling responsible. And your music? I never touched a piano again. I went to Yale as planned, took over the company when I turned 25, became exactly what he wanted me to be." The irony in his voice was painful to hear. "My mother recovered physically, but something in her broke that night too. She retreated from life, from me. I think looking at me reminded her too much of what she'd lost." Amelia's heart ached for the boy he'd been, for the dreams he'd abandoned. "Until recently. Until you," Gabriel corrected her. "Somehow you've reached her in a way I never could." "Maybe because I remind her of herself," Amelia suggested gently. "A mother who loves music." They had reached a small footbridge. Gabriel stopped, turning to face her fully. "Now you know my darkest secret," he said quietly. "Does it change your answer to my proposal?" Amelia considered the question carefully. I haven't given you an answer yet. But you have concerns. Not about what happened 17 years ago, she assured him. You were a child caught in an impossible situation. My concern is more practical. She took a deep breath. Penny and I have built a life in Boston. It's not perfect, but it's ours. Moving to Newport, becoming dependent on your family's generosity, that's a big step. It's not charity, Gabriel insisted. You've given my mother back her joy, her will to live. You can't put a price on that. But there would be a price, Amelia said quietly, just not a financial one. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You think I expect something in return? Something personal? The gossip has already started, Amelia admitted. My former co-worker at the wedding, he implied things. If I move into your family's estate, I would never, Gabriel began, then stopped, his expression shifting from offense to something softer. Is that your only concern? What people might think? No, Amelia admitted, her heart beating faster. I'm also afraid it might be true. What might be true? That there is something personal developing. She met his gaze steadily, at least on my side. For a moment, Gabriel looked stunned. Then slowly, tentatively, he reached for her hand. Amelia, when you played that first night at the gala, something happened to me. Something I thought I'd buried forever woke up. His fingers tightened around hers. The last thing I expected was to feel again. Music, emotion, connection. But I do. With you. The honesty in his voice left Amelia breathless. Then what are we doing? Your mother's music therapist? Your employee? That's not what I want, Gabriel finished. No, it's not. But I didn't think I had the right to ask for more. His free hand came up to touch her cheek. Do I? Before she could answer, her phone rang. Margaret's ringtone. Apologizing, Amelia answered immediately, her stomach dropping at the panic in her neighbor's voice. It's Penny, Margaret said. She spiked a fever suddenly. The hospital says to bring her in right away. The next hours passed in a blur. Gabriel insisted on driving her to Margaret's apartment, then to Boston Children's Hospital. He used his influence to ensure Penny received immediate attention, staying by Amelia's side through the examinations and tests. When Penny was finally settled in a private room on IV antibiotics for a severe infection, Amelia collapsed into a chair beside the bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall in sleep. She's going to be okay, Gabriel said softly from the doorway. The doctor just confirmed the antibiotics are working. Amelia nodded, too exhausted for words. Gabriel entered, placing a cup of coffee in her hands. You should rest, I can stay with her. You don't have to do this, Amelia said, looking up at him. I want to, he replied simply, taking the seat beside her. After a moment he added, I called my mother, told her what happened. I'm sorry about missing tomorrow's session. Don't apologize. She sends her love. And this. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, antique music box. It was hers as a child. She thought Penny might like it when she wakes up. Tears filled Amelia's eyes at the unexpected kindness. Thank you. Gabriel hesitated, then spoke carefully. My offer still stands, but with an amendment. Instead of Newport, I have a property in Brookline, 15 minutes from here. You and Penny would have your own space, your independence. My mother could visit, or you could visit her. No obligations beyond that. Amelia looked at her sleeping daughter, then back at Gabriel. And us? Whatever this is between us. We take it one day at a time, he said. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. 3 months later, on a snowy December evening, the music room of Gabriel's Brookline home was filled with the sound of laughter and piano music. Penny, fully recovered and thriving in her new school, sat beside Caroline at the grand piano, her small fingers picking out Heart and Soul while the older woman played the accompaniment. From the doorway, Amelia watched them, her heart full. The past months had brought changes she could never have imagined, Penny's health improving under the care of Boston's best specialists, her own career blossoming as she divided her time between teaching, performing at select private events, and her continued sessions with Caroline. And then there was Gabriel. He approached now, slipping an arm around her waist as they watched his mother and Penny play. She's getting better every day, he murmured. They both are, Amelia replied, leaning into him slightly. Caroline looked up, catching them in their moment of closeness, and smiled. a genuine, warm expression that transformed her once stern face. "Gabriel," she called, "come show Penny that piece you've been practicing." Amelia looked at him in surprise. "You've been practicing?" A faint flush colored his cheeks. "Just a little, when no one's around." "He's been taking lessons in secret," Caroline confided to Penny with a conspiratorial wink, "just like he used to as a boy." "Come on, Uncle Gabriel," Penny encouraged, patting the bench beside her. In the months since moving to Brookline, she had adopted Caroline as her honorary grandmother and Gabriel as her uncle, forming bonds that amazed Amelia daily. Gabriel hesitated, then moved to the piano. Sitting down, he placed his hands on the keys with visible trepidation. "I'm very rusty," he warned. "Play the lullaby," Caroline urged gently. "The one I taught you." After a deep breath, Gabriel began to play Brahms' lullaby, simply but with surprising sensitivity. The sweet, familiar melody filled the room, carrying with it the weight of years, of loss and rediscovery, of healing. Amelia moved closer, standing behind him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. She felt the tension in him gradually release as he surrendered to the music. When he finished, the room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. "That was beautiful," Amelia said softly. Gabriel covered her hand with his. "Thank you for giving this back to me. All of it." Later that night, after Penny was asleep and Caroline had retired to her suite, Amelia and Gabriel sat together by the fireplace in the library. "I have something for you," Gabriel said, retrieving a small wrapped package from his desk. "An early Christmas gift." Amelia unwrapped it carefully to find a vintage leather journal. Opening it, she discovered it was filled with handwritten sheet music, original compositions dated from the 1980s through the early 2000s. "My mother's compositions," Gabriel explained. "She showed them to me last week. All these years I had no idea she wrote music." "They're beautiful," Amelia said, scanning the notations. "Complex, but accessible. She has real talent. She wants you to play them. Perhaps even help her publish them." "I'd be honored," Amelia said sincerely. Gabriel took her hand. "I never thought my family could be whole again. I never thought I could find my way back to music or to real connection with another person." His eyes, once so guarded, now shone with open emotion. "You've changed everything, Amelia, not just by what you play, but by who you are." As he leaned forward to kiss her, Amelia reflected on how a single moment, a dare taken, a risk embraced, had altered the course of so many lives. What had begun as a joke had become the most meaningful performance of her life, awakening dormant dreams not just for herself but for everyone around her. And as Gabriel's arms encircled her, Amelia knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of their story, a composition still being written, note by beautiful note.